Welcome to Chicano Studies 101. I'm Silverio Aro. I'll be teaching this class for the next 6 weeks. Um, this is just an introductory to get it started, and let's get going. All right. First of all, when you log on to Blackboard, the first thing you'll want to do is review the syllabus. In the syllabus, you'll see all the course objectives as well as the deadlines that are going to be associated with this class. Since it is 6 weeks, it's going to be going by pretty quickly. I'd like you to take note of the quiz deadlines. We have our class divided into 7 lessons, and each lesson concludes with a quiz. So you want to make sure that you follow the deadline on this. The third aspect of this class that I want you to make note of is a plagiarism contract. Unfortunately, in the past, I've had some issues with plagiarism, and I'm now requiring students to sign a contract that's online. There are no points associated with it, just so you know. But it does put us on the same page with respect to what is considered plagiarism and what is strictly prohibited. And then, of course, the last thing about the class is if you do happen to encounter any issues with Blackboard, you want to let me know right away. My email is listed there on the syllabus. Okay, so let's get started just with a quick overview of the class. And I think before we can talk about the class is what is a Chicano? What is a Chicana? Now, some of us have heard and are familiar with the terms Hispanic, Latino, Mexican, Mexican-American, but maybe not necessarily a Chicano or a Chicana. And so I think it's important for us to kind of go over those. Now, I label this particular first bullet point as what is in a label. In other words, why do we have labels? And I think it's safe to say that most of us associate ourselves with one group or another, and those labels are something that we bring upon ourselves or someone subscribes to us or gives us. Now, with respect to the labels that I've listed out here for this group of people, there are differences in the labels. And I'd like to kind of go over that, and so we can kind of get at why the different usage and what might be the significance of those labels. All right, so the first one that's kind of all-encompassing is Hispanic. Hispanic is generated from Spain, from the Hispanic or Hispania Peninsula, Iberian Peninsula in Europe, and that encapsulates Spain and Portugal. Now, this dates back to when there were colonization efforts in the New World. So, Latin America, Central America, South America, North America, Caribbean, and the Hispanics, ventured off into, of course, Mexico, the Portuguese into Brazil, and so anyone that's remotely connected to this expansion is regarded as a Hispanic. So it's very geographical in nature. Now, we have the next term is Latino. Latino is a subset of Hispanic. That's why I kind of use that imagery there that you see there. It's like a larger set than a subset. Now, whereas Hispanic, that term can actually refer to Spanish people from Spain or Portuguese from Portugal. Latino is a little bit more geographically focused. It focuses on Latin America. So if you think about it, Latin America includes North America, Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. And those particular attributes of Latinos will be probably language, and customs, culture, religion, etc. All right. And the next subset that we have is Mexican. Now, obviously, someone that is Mexican would have to have been born in Mexico or have some kind of connection to Mexico, hence the term Mexican. Again, that's a subset of Hispanic Latino. All right. The next one is Mexican American. Now, obviously, there's a connection there between Mexico and the U.S. in the sense that a Mexican American is an American typically born in the United States, but maybe perhaps with a Mexican ancestry. Which gets us to the term Chicano. Chicano is a term, and by the way, I use the term Chicano and Chicana. Chicana means feminine or the female version of a Chicano, and the male is kind of sometimes used for males as well as kind of an all-encompassing title for all things related to Chicanos or Chicanas. And if you notice, that is a subset of Mexican American. Now, you have some purists that will say that Chicanos are can only be those folks that are from Mexican American or Mexican descent. Now, again, I say purists because when the term first started being used back in the 60s, there was a distinction there. I think it's safe to say now that, and as you'll find in the class, that someone that calls himself a Chicana or Chicano is not necessarily from Mexican American roots, but also perhaps has a political orientation. They might have been born in Mexico but were raised here, or perhaps they're from Central America and were then later took on the political agenda of Chicanos. So I wanted to kind of show you this. This comes up a lot, and so you can see there's a larger set, and then of course a more focused subset as we go along and continue. All right, so which gets us to one of the terms there, a Mexican American. Now I think it's safe to say that American culture is the culture that presides here or resides here in the United States. We could settle on California if you'd like, but certainly there's particular cultural traits to being an American. I think those include language, which I think it's safe to say that the English language is the language that is mostly associated with American culture. Traditions. Let's see here. We're going to be celebrating the 4th of July soon enough this summer, and I suspect that's a tradition many have here. Barbecues, family, friends, fireworks, baseball game, etc. And then of course religion. Now religion, we've come a lot more diverse as time has marched on, but I think it's safe to say that during the origins of this country, the Protestant was a very predominant influence in this country, and what have you. And then of course the history of this country, the United States, and going from the colonial days, establishment, all the way up until recent times, there's a shared culture, a shared history and a cultural experience. Now, if we were to go over to the Mexican culture, same thing. Spanish language. You have indigenous languages that are still spoken in Mexico. I believe there's 53 indigenous languages that are still spoken in Mexico. So even before the Spanish came over and through conquest imposed their particular language, you had folks here speaking indigenous languages, their native tongue, if you will. And then, of course, the traditions. A lot of the traditions are rooted in religion, excuse me. You have traditional foods. The ones that come to mind are tamales, tortillas. Those have been in this particular country, Mexico, for centuries, if not more. And lately now we have those, a lot of folks could eat those at any given restaurant or Mexican restaurant or what have you. Religion. Religion, I would think it's safe to say in Mexico is Catholic, and that's because of the Spanish and the conquest and what they did there. You'll be learning more about that particular foray with this class. And then, of course, the history. The history is, I think, is easily divided into two main categories. Pre-Columbian, in other words, that was here before Columbus, so the indigenous cultures. And then after the Columbus and Cortez and others that came from Europe and started imposing structures, political structures, economic structures, educational structures, etc., onto Mexico. So it has that history. Now, when we merge these two together, we get this thing called a Mexican American. So even though someone might have been born here in this country, here we go. Oops. we have this overlapping spheres, if you will. So if the one on the left represents Mexican culture and the one on the right represents American culture, the two intersecting, um, the place or the space where the two intersect, I think it's safe to say that's Mexican American culture. Um, so, just as the Irish or the Polish, the German, the Japanese have their hyphenated American, Italian Americans, German Americans, Japanese Americans, Chinese Americans, etc., you have Mexican Americans. Now, the nuance here is that, um, going back to the labels, there was a time in the history of Mexican Americans where they wanted to use a different label that characterized them. Hence the word Chicano and Chicana. In our first lesson, you'll be learning about what that term means, where it might have originated, and how it's used. Suffice to say that it is a word that folks choose to use as opposed to a label that is being issued to one. Now, there's been some evolution of the term Chicana, Chicano, and lately I've seen it spelled with an X. She, Chicana, Chicano. So just kind of a little bit more of a radicalization, if you will, of that term. The last one that I've seen lately, just because of the nuances of the Spanish language, Spanish language uses masculine and feminine type of what's the word here? Not labels, but la mesa, el ojo. In other words, there are objects that are feminine, there's objects that are masculine. And so what folks have done is use that at sign as a way to say Chicano, Chicana, and spell it that way. All right. Let's see here. Well, that's all I have for you for this particular lesson. And again, welcome to Chicano Studies 101. And I welcome you to go on to the readings now.